Whether you're ready or not, we're going to go down a rabbit hole. I think in frameworks. And one of the things that has been fascinating to me since I started this, I guess my journey of waking up, or at least understanding how things are put together in this universe and how it relates to getting things that we want in our lives. Some people call it the matrix. I think that's a decent way of explaining what it is. This fabric of the physical universe that we inhabit. There's these molecules that make up solids, liquids, and gases. There's also an entirely separate type of energy that science has failed to thoroughly explain. They're studying the physical universe to explain non-physical universe phenomena like miracles or clairvoyance or telepathy or anything like that. And it's a real thing, all of that. So how many of you guys, for example, have ever been in a room and you felt somebody staring at you and you turned around and they were? Anybody ever have that experience? Yeah. Physical universe science cannot explain that. So there's an energy that permeates the physical universe that does not live in the physical universe. And there's lots of different theories that attempt to explain this. Some of them include simultaneous dimensions that exist right now that we just don't see or feel or have access to, but if we vibrate on a certain frequency, they magically appear. And so I have been just fascinated by it, first of all. Second of all, I'm the type of guy, if you give me a problem, I can't stop until I solve it. Like I have a compulsive need to solve problems. And that has caused me to think in frameworks that can solve problems into perpetuity. And I was, over the last week or so, I had this idea, and I'm trying to really re-explain sure, we focused a lot about business how-to stuff. But the reality is that is a very small piece of the puzzle. It's a piece of the puzzle that's required, but it's a relatively small piece of the puzzle. The bigger piece of the puzzle is getting yourself to a place where all of that heavy how-to physical universe stuff goes away. And we've all seen people that things just seem to happen easier for them than it does for us. Anybody have that experience? You just look at them, why the fuck is it so easy for you and so hard for me? There's a few different answers to that question from my perspective. All of this is my conjecture, my hypothesis, and I'm going to do my best to explain why I have this hypothesis. I am not claiming to have the secrets of the universe. However, I figured some stuff out that's made it a little easier to navigate this joint in a way that doesn't suck so bad. So I'm going to do my best today I'm going to be thinking out loud while I take you guys through this. And so you guys are like my sounding board for this. I want you to ask questions along the way. This isn't a fully baked out training, but it is a framework that I believe has a lot of practical application and merit, and is a way of thinking and understanding not just about the business world, but about the simultaneous universes that we're living in and how they interact with each other and how to use one universe to influence the other and so on. And for those of you who have not gone through, has anybody not gone through this scale of emotions thing inside of the Bulletproof Mind? Anybody not gone through this? All right, cool. So just as a recap, just in case, when we, inside of the Bulletproof Mind stuff, we talk about this emotional tone scale. And so these levels, there's two sides of this. There's the real you that knows you can do cool shit, the powerhouse you, however you want to explain it. And then there's this mind thing. I've highlighted this mind thing in, this thing changed? There's highlighter. The mind, red, you, blue, separate. And I'm going to jump around here a little bit because, again, I'm organizing my thoughts live, but I know what I'm about to say is at least significant enough to use today's time on it, so you guys can take that as you will. But I've always looked at it this way. There's these two universes. There's you, and then there's the mind, and they're overlapping each other. They're interchanged. They're like this. They permeate each other. One cannot exist without the other, and they're completely codependent. And when I've discussed this in other master classes, where when we have the higher, whoa, that is way too thin. What are we doing with that? Let's see. Okay. We have the higher version of you, right? That basically, from your point of creation, you are the ultimate creator. That's the presupposition here, is you're the ultimate creator. You've just forgotten it. And this mind that you've taken on in this physical universe experience is where the physical universe lives. It's where, when you clear charges using the charge clearing tools, this is the mind down here, is where all of these polarities exist. So you might have heard me talk about how there's negatively charged particles and positively charged particles in this universe that make up atoms, which is the physical universe stuff. This is the physical physical universe science part of it. And so what happens is when you go clear charges, let's say you're feeling bad about something, you have more heavily negative perceptions than you do positives. And to really simplify this, when you go and balance them out, what happens is this charge goes away. And just like in math class in 5th grade, when one side equals the other, you get to cancel them out and there's nothing left. And for those of you who have cleared a charge and experienced some sort of alleviation or a lighter feeling or whatever, a different way of looking at something, how many of you guys have noticed who have done that, some sort of a lighter experience as a result? Right. So what's happening is you're discharging an actual physical atom, okay? And it's an electrical energy that can be measured, and it is being discharged. And so that's why it's lighter, is there's less of a heavy charge, electrical charge coursing through your physical body, which is what fires off the neurons that basically your brain is an electrical transmission machine. And so but it's also your brain is in the physical universe. And so it's like this conductor where you are the electrical energy that is this blue thing that simultaneously permeates the brain, that basically pulls levers inside the brain with electric pulses, and those levers make your hands do stuff, your mouth do stuff, and your body do stuff, and what have you. And that's what most use to manipulate the physical universe. Okay, so you, from this higher point of awareness, are saying, okay, I want to move my hand now. And so you basically decide to send that intention that left hand moves, and it fires off this thing in brain that basically it's like you're the driver pushing the gas on the gas pedal of the car. You decided that it was going to happen. Mechanically pushing the pedal makes the combustion engine fire and the pistons turn and the wheels turn and so on and so forth. And what clouds our ability to function, get where we want to go, get what we want to get, is this thing called the mind. Now, the mind exists only in the physical universe. It does not exist in what we're going to explore as, some may call it the spiritual universe. I don't care whatever word you want to use. It's the blue one, all right? And so the physical universe, what you're looking at right now with I see you're taking sips of coffee, the air that you're breathing, all of that exists in the physical universe. So we can call all of this down here, this is physical, and we can just call this spiritual, whatever you want to call it. I don't say spiritual in terms of Christian or Islam or whatever. It's not the point. The point is there's some facet of this human experience that has been attempted to be explained in numerous different ways, from numerous different religions, from numerous different scientific standpoints. At the end of the day, I just choose to call it the God force, you, the real you, the creator of all things. And most of us are using that creative energy reactively to create situations that we don't want, which is the game of the physical universe. So if you've read my Mindset Sins book, I walk through this very thoroughly. And I think that's probably my best depiction of that. That's not what I'm talking about here today. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, go for it. We're going to go down a bit of a different one that's going to be a layer on top of that, but just to establish some basics here while we're at it. And to add a bit of a different layer to this, there's numerous versions of this tone scale, by the way. This is a simplified one that I've created just basically for practical use that aligns directly with the tools that we have in the Bulletproof Mind curriculum tool section. But as we go up here, there's like this energy dial, right? And so at the bottom here, I guess it's tough to overlay all this, but at the bottom of this here we have dead, right? Completely inanimate, nothing's moving, not much energy going on, no energy going on, dead, okay? And so picture like we turn up the energy dial more and more, we start to go up this scale, okay? And so this is what happens when you clear charges, is you start to essentially, I'm going to explain this in numerous different ways, and hopefully one of them will hit. There's no perfect way of explaining it. This is my attempt at taking very complicated esoteric stuff and dumbing it down, and it's not easy. So forgive me if this seems too much, whatever, we're doing it. So the way I look at it is if this is you, everything that is down here, this doubt, fear, frustration, physical universe, obstacle, time, all of that, matter, energy, space, time, it all exists down here. And so it's like you're naturally this big old like balloon, but all of these things are tethered to you. And so what happens is when you get rid of these anchors, what happens is you don't necessarily get lighter. You've always been it. You just start dropping the anchors. You stop being effect to this reactive physical universe that exists down here in this red zone. And this is why the physical universe exists, where it exists and why it exists, how it exists, is it requires a push and pull of polarities, okay? And again, I believe I've covered this pretty thoroughly in other master classes and whatnot, but what we're really doing as beings things and why we're even playing this physical universe game is so that we can see the effect of our abilities. So imagine if only the blue existed and there's no physical universe. There's no matter, energy, space, and time. There's nothing to see, nothing, no sensation, nothing to experience. And so you have all this horsepower, but you can't really do anything with it. It's like being Michael Jordan, but he doesn't have a basketball or a basketball court. That's awesome that you're Michael, but there's no way to demonstrate it. And so what we do is we create a game. A game exists only in the physical universe. And so this is where I've explained this as there's like a game board. I don't know why I keep doing that. I'll use that one. Okay. Like a game board. A game requires an offense, a defense. It requires goals. Not a good goal. There we go. Goals. It requires boundaries. It requires rules. And we, out of our infinite creative ability, decide we want to see our powers at work, and we create a game for ourselves so that we can experience a challenge, because without challenge, a game doesn't exist and it's very boring. I've used the example of imagine, I'll just keep with a basketball example because it's easy and everybody pretty much knows what basketball is. Imagine an NBA team playing against a team of infants. Full 48-minute game. It'd be boring as hell, but they got to play it, right? Not a fun game. And so what they got to do is they have to have an opponent that is a worthy opponent that makes the game fun and interesting, makes the game close. Blowout games are not fun to watch, but close games are. And so that's where we create the procrastination. We decide that we're going to just wait until the last minute because it's more exciting that way. That's really all we're doing, right? And so all of those types of games, we'll just call them small games, exist in the lower levels of awareness and lower dimensions, as I'm about to unpack in a second here. Just trying to establish some basics. Why does the spirit want fun when it's already blissed out? From my perspective, is it gets bored. This relating it to a spiritual, I don't know the exact quote, but it's like idle hands are the devil's workshop, I think is what the quote is, right? And out of this middle zone of boredom, actually, even though it doesn't look like it's the middle here, out of this zone of boredom right here is where we can either create or destroy. And so when there's nothing, there's a void, there's a nothingness, it's pretty fucking boring. I would argue that it's not even blissed out. It's a nothing. It's a void. It's an infinite potential. It's a starting point. It's at point 0, 0 of 0, 0, 0. If we were going to graph it on a three-dimensional plane, it would look something like x-axis, y-axis, z-axis. Boredom is like right here. It is infinite potential. You could do anything from that place, but it's not a very blissed out, fun place to be. It's a place to be that anything can happen and you can do anything. And now we have a choice. Now, most people don't believe or know or feel that they have a choice, okay? And so what happens is they start pursuing somebody else's goals or reactive goals of what somebody else tells them to do or what have you, okay? Where does infatuation fit on the scale? Ultimately, it's down here. It's a goal. So an infatuation is I really want a goal. So you've decided out of boredom that you really want something, and that's what causes the obstacles. So that's a game, okay? And it's this constant game of you can't only live in one universe or the other, right? The game, at least as I see it, is we live in both simultaneously, and there's two options of games to play. One where we have full control, another where the game is I give somebody else control, and so that somebody else could be my government, my wife, or my mind. I give somebody else control, and let's see what happens. You decide where we want to eat, and then based on where you take us, I get to then decide whether I like it or not, and I make it your problem if it's not something that I like, rather than deciding myself. And so we're doing this not just with our friends or our spouses, but we're doing this with our own minds, is you decide where we should go. And that mind's, all right, cool, I saw this other shit over here, we should do that now. Maybe it's your goal, maybe it's not, but you're like, okay, cool. And now you've decided the new game is, let my reactive mind run the show. We'll see where this goes. Can't wait. I hope it happens. Let's see where this fucking goes. And that's the game that most people are playing. And then what the reactive mind will do is it'll keep creating little mini bullshit games within this bigger game to keep you stuck in this game. And we'll get deeper and deeper into deeper games. And they're all reactive. Now, knowing this framework, okay, that's a step in the right direction. But the whole goal here, my whole goal here is how do we control the universe, right? So if I can control my own universe, my universe affects your universe. And if I control it deliberately for a specific outcome, it's still a game, but it's a game that I'm controlling. It's a game that I'm coming up with. It's not a game that is somebody else's game, which is why that vision and mission section where it's uncover your purpose, link it to your goals and all of that is so important is because it's a deliberate creation of the game. And what most people do, and the reason why they don't want to get clear on something, by the way, how many of you guys have, even if it's where you want to eat, how many of you guys have ever been like, I'm not clear on where I want to eat, you decide? Anybody? Same. And the mind resists clarity. The reason is, as soon as you have ultimate clarity, the game becomes pretty much already won. As soon as you have all the answers, the game's over. And out of the game being over, boredom ensues and you're back at square zero. And so what do? You want to create a game reactively that makes it keep going forever. And so you stop trying to get clarity. And that's why your mind comes in and resists, says, no, fuck that. We're not going to get clear on numbers. Because as soon as we're clear on numbers, we know what to do. And if we know what to do and then we do it and we win, the game's over. And then we're bored again. And that sucks because I don't know what to do next. And so we might as well just keep playing this reactive game of, I don't know, let's find out. Okay. And when you find yourself getting resistant to getting clarity on things, that's what's happening. Your mind wants to keep you stuck in the game. At least now we know. From that point, you can do whatever you want with this information. In my opinion, there's no right or wrong. I just understand that from my perspective, this is how I see it. This has been my experience, and working with hundreds and hundreds of people on this type of stuff for the last 5-6 years, I haven't seen any exceptions. But I realize this is a bit esoteric, so take all of it with a grain of salt. But yeah, Roderick's saying so much truth, the resistance to clarity. The reason is if you got 100% clear and you were 100% certain, you were 100% confident, you knew, and then you won the game, it's over. And that's like nobody wants the game to be over. And because as soon as the game is over, I'll take this a step further. As soon as the game is over, you're back to the void and the physical universe disappears. And now we have potential fears of destruction of the physical universe. If we win the game, the universe gets destroyed. And so I realize that's a bit of a high level esoteric thing that's going on. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we are all, going back to the Buddhist concept, is we are all one. We are all the creator. And if you read the book Conversations with God, specifically part 1, I think they explain it really well. It's not a pyramid scheme, but basically like it keeps splitting off. There's this you, there's this collective consciousness, you're me, I'm you, it's all one. That's this energy that I'm talking about. However you want to explain it, I don't really care. But out of that infinite wisdom, if you will, in fact, if more accurately, this would be that, and then we would have a new series of games created at each of these levels, and so on and so forth. I've drawn this in a few other places, but ultimately, this all splits off many hundreds of thousands of millions, billions times over, all the way into effect into a situation where we're fully convinced that my name is John Whiting, I'm a human being, I am made up of physical universe atoms, and Nathan is a totally separate person from me, and we have no relation whatsoever. He lives in a different country, we're different. When the reality is that's just a symptom of having this ultimate game that I'm drawing here being created, and it's a lie. The fact is, the real actual fact is we're all the fucking same thing. We're this energy that are using this physical universe as a playground to see what we can do with it. And there's a lot of little complex games that have been created out of this big old branch of games that I'm drawing up here. Ultimately, as soon as we win a game, and we win the ultimate game of ultimate clarity and ultimate realization, guess what? This physical universe that we've created, this right here that we've created, from a place of being up here, which is the real truth, it goes away and we're back to we got to do it again. And so that's why we resist clarity, is because we equate clarity to basically the destruction of the physical universe, or at the very least, destruction of the existing game. Although we're not conscious of it, because there's all of these different perspectives and complexities that we've created from a physical universe human being standpoint in that game, at the very low on this scale, by the way, all of this physical universe games, not the real you. It's all a lie, right? So if you were following any of the political fucking craziness that's been going on, it's all about polarities. That's what keeps the game going. That's what keeps everything going. As soon as everybody agrees on something, the whole system goes away. And when the whole system goes away, everybody's bored again. So that's why like this idea of a utopia where everybody gets along and there's only peace, it can't physically exist in the physical universe, because the physical universe only is held together by polarities. It can only exist in a separate dimension, in a separate universe that has been explained as, I drew it here, the spirit universe, whatever you want to call it. I've heard it explained as the 5th dimension. And so I went down this rabbit hole of the dimensions because I wanted to see how that might relate, because I'm weird like that. I don't know. But I realized that I had this concept of trying to equate, what are we really doing? What am I really doing? I'm helping people get to the 5th dimension as it's explained from what is the fifth dimension, ChatGPT? It's this dimension where all knowingness and creative power and everything I've explained is the concept of the real you. So I'm like, all right, cool. Well, that must mean that everybody's living most people are living in a dimension that is a lower dimension. So I'm like, what dimension is that? Third dimension. Well, that must mean there's a fourth. There's a second. I'm like, how many dimensions are there? And so I think came up with a model where these things overlap in terms of our human experience as it relates to building businesses and getting just shit that we want in life, ultimately, in winning that game. And so now that we have those basics handled, and by the way, just this concept of bulletproof up here, indisputable, unshakable ability to command and influence one's own environment at the highest level of power, strength, and courage. Cool. I made that one up, but you'll notice the level here, these numbers are a bit arbitrary, but just to paint a picture, even though this says 40, but it's right next to 4, there's this scale that I'll maybe redraw a little bit just for context. Okay, so if we're going to go 0, if we're going to go like 0, let's use the right colors. 0, we'll just say 20. And let's just say 40. Everything let's say this is 10, 30. Okay, that must mean this is 5. That must mean this is 4 of the enthusiasm. And that must mean that down here we have at 2, we have anger. And then at 0, death and everything in between. So you see this spectrum right here, this mind spectrum down here. And you see how far up this bulletproof idea is this dimension. So there's this physical universe dimension that's very small down here, right? And so ultimately, when we're like, we're all of this, but we've got these anchors that exist down here in the physical universe that we think are physical universe obstacles that we've either created causatively or we've created reactively. Nonetheless, they are the anchors that are keeping us pulled down. In fact, if I was going to do this correctly, keeping us dragged down here. So the reality is when you're like clearing charges, you're not transforming into a new person. All you're doing is releasing the stuff that is basically keeping you from seeing who you really are. I've talk to thousands of people at this point, both in person, online, and probably through the recordings of it or whatever, where I start by saying, how many of you guys know you have the next level in you and you're just trying to get it out? Every fucking hand goes up. People innately know that they've got it in them. To reference a Bible quote, to be clear, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual by definition. We're all technically spiritual if we're conscious. That's what spiritual consciousness is. Welcome. We're all spiritual. We're all spiritual beings. Congratulations, you made it. The Bible says the kingdom of God is within man, not a group of men, but in all men, all women, humans. So the kingdom of God, that utopia place, is within us. So we've heard this in multiple different ways. I'm just using these other references to let's tie all this together to what does that really mean? It means you're it. Everything out there that makes you think that you're not is a lie. It's an imbalanced perception that once you balance it, these things basically get released. And so imagine you start with 10,000 anchors holding you down and you release them all, right? One by one. You're going to be lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. You're going to feel like a new person. But the reality is you've been living basically a lie under the veil of the mind. That is the game of the physical universe that you've chosen to play to keep yourself entertained. Because if we have this big, arduous, holy shit type of a problem in front of us, it's a game that keeps going. Anybody know somebody who's had a problem for a really fucking long time, the same fucking problem? Maybe you know some of them intimately. So all it is, you've just decided that you're going to get stuck into that game. You don't have to. But the way to get out of that has a few different dimensions to it. And so I'm going to sneak on over here to hopefully this makes some sort of sense. All right. Okay enough to read, do you think? Even if it's not, there's nothing I can fucking do. All right. So I'm not sure where I'm going to start. Here's where I'm going to start. This down here, I've aligned it with this mind section. Okay. That's the physical universe. All right. Up here, I've aligned it with that you section. All right. So just so we're on the same page, this is an overlap and just an expansion of concepts. This one-dimensional, the abyss. Now, this is some ChatGPT names, but I thought they were cute, so we're using them. The abyss. And in here is I came up with a label of the person. So you can see up here this is the bulletproof entrepreneur, right? Okay. Down here we have the forsaken. A realm of total inertia and unconscious experience. Void of awareness, growth, or purpose, is in a state of complete disconnection from potential, stuck in a primal loop of survival. Represents the darkest, most stagnant point of being, lifeless, hopeless, and directionless. One-dimensional. Basically, basically, this is what I'll equate to. Everybody can picture this well, is like the homeless guy on the street that's like just passed out flat on the ground, not moving. Like he's about as almost just this side of dead, right? The lights are on, maybe, but nobody's home. I know this for numerous reasons. I lived in Los Angeles for 3 years, downtown Los Angeles. And I will tell you, if you want to go see a whole lot of lifeless motherfuckers, you go to downtown Los Angeles. There's nobody there anymore. It's the difference between how many of you guys have ever met a dog that was like, this was like a human in there. This is like they respond to language. They have like a personality, their facial expressions. Anybody ever met a dog like that? And then have you met a dog that seems like nobody's home and they're just like a reactive, like maybe angry barking, like no, doesn't matter what you say or what you do. They don't respond to anything. They just eat, bark at you and shit. And like they have no commands. They can't learn anything. Anybody ever seen a dog like that? That would be a dog that is animated in the physical universe, but only by physical universe energy, not by spiritual energy. In other words, the lights are on, but there's not a being in there. There's not a consciousness in there. And this I've seen occur in dogs, as you guys just have, but I've also seen, if you go wander downtown Los Angeles in the worst areas, and when I say worst, honestly, there are some that are dangerous, but others are just like everybody's just doped out and like literally nobody's home. Like their bodies are moving. There was I drove, probably spent way too much time in these areas simply because that's where I had to live adjacent to. But I remember very distinctly driving through one of these areas one day. And by the way, what's weird about LA is like they're right next to like really affluent areas. It's bizarre. I was driving through one of these areas and legitimately there is this guy who is butt ass naked, like wandering in the middle of the street, dick swinging, like like the whole bit. Clearly not home. There was not a consciousness in there. It was just basically like the animal, but the human Homo sapien animal, but there was not a consciousness in there to connect with, to communicate with, just similar to this dog idea, right? And so that is what I would call this first dimension. Second dimension, the reactive plane. So you might call this a follower, okay? Duality defines this realm, right? And when we're talking duality, all that means is we have this, we got this, there's a polarity, there's a duality. There's one side versus the other, okay? Lives in reaction rather than proactive creation. Chases short-term wins without strategy or depth, remaining stuck in surface-level interactions and outcomes. A lot of times also, follower was the definition of this, following what other people think they should do. So this is, I need somebody to govern me because I can't make my own decisions. So you choose where we want to go. You choose where we should eat. You choose how I should live my life. You choose what I should do with my money. You choose where I should live. You choose how I should move. You choose how fast I can go, okay? Very low causality. Then we move up to, where would you say the consciousness dwells, inside of the mind or outside of it? As I mentioned, so that's why I drew these guys up here. They're like this. They're interwoven. Consciousness permeates it all, and it all permeates consciousness. It's what animates the whole thing, okay? So they're simultaneous. I don't know how else to... I thought this highlighter was a bit more... Maybe I could go... No, I thought I could do something transparent, but... Oh, there we go. Look at that. So they're like this. So how they overlap. But picture like two spheres, but you combine them together, and one's in the other, and the other is in the one. It's also, by the way, this is the yin and yang, okay? This is another way of explaining that, where, right, I'm not going to color all that in, but you get the idea. It's this never-ending loop. It's also the never-ending loop of infinity, okay? And so it's another way of depicting that, where they can't exist without each other. The blue energy is needed to animate the red. The red cannot animate itself, and it needs the blue to do it. The blue exists alone, but can't see an effect of its blueness without the red. And so it created the red to see the effect of its blueness. And at least how I see how this whole thing's put together, which is why you can't escape it, but you can control it, okay? And the cool thing about this, going back to this guy right here, is if I wanted, maybe I'll do it this way. So if I wanted, I don't know if this is going to go well or not, but we're going to try this. I'm going to put some grid lines here, right? You're going to see how this looks a bit like, everybody relax, this isn't math class, this is much more fun than that. So I can put these grid lines here in these are 3 dimensions, right? And so what happens is on these grid lines, we can move, I wish I could do some 3D cool shit and spin this around around and see, but we can go we start here, we can go up one point like this, we can go like this, we can go out here, we can go here, let's go really far out here, and we can just start navigating ourselves within this is the three-dimensional universe, okay? You guys following this? It inherently is these particles that make up these different points. Which is why the analogy of the Matrix and like it being a video game is very real, is because each one of those points has a location and it has a value to it in relation to absolute zero in the middle. And so that's how a GPS works, for example, is you can only know where you are in relation to another point. The original origin point of ultimate all options are available is right here in the middle. And if you don't know where you are, so let's just say right here, you're right here, and you want to get over here. If you don't know that you're over here and you don't know where over here is, it's impossible to route directions to get there. Because that's the only way you as a being, you're like, I want a specific experience in my physical universe. That means it exists in a place that you currently are not, but it does exist. Therefore, we got to find out, where are we? Where is it? And how do I get there in relation to this 3D physical universe? So another way of saying this is if this physical universe is in the third dimension, these three dimensions, right? We can then control the third dimension by being outside of that dimension and doing exactly what we're doing right here on this iPad, where we're navigating this third dimension, but you can't do that from within it. So the first dimension, second dimension, third dimensions of awareness, this reactive level of awareness, all that is somebody else, you're inside of it, you got these points here, you're inside of it, but you've got somebody else outside of it telling you that you should believe this, you should believe that, and this is an election cycle, right? That's all they're doing, is they're taking you and pushing you where they want to go, and it's not on your own self-determinism. So they're navigating you 3D universe because you've chosen to not navigate yourself. You've given up the power to somebody else, whether it's them or your mind or both, consciously or unconsciously. If it feels as though you're being moved around by life, you are. That's how you know. If it ain't going the way you want it, and it feels like something out there or even in here is keeping you from where you want to go, your effect to it. You're living in that third dimension. That third dimension is what I think is appropriately called the realm of chaos, the lost souls, immersed in survival and scarcity, disconnected from purpose, trapped in reactive cycles of stress, fear, and emotional turbulence, struggles with clarity and alignment, constantly grinding without meaningful purpose. Progress. Okay. So basically, another way of saying that is bouncing around in here, but at least we're bouncing around, right? The first dimension, second dimension, ain't no bouncing happening. But now we're bouncing around, but we're not like thrilled with it. Okay. But at least we're moving, right? Let's see, Nate, from my understanding, this is why it's key to zoom out and constantly be aware of where we are, where we want to be, and see if we're making progress towards it. You got it, baby. I'm gonna tie a few different things together here in just a second, but I think we're making decent progress so far. So then we get to the fourth, call this the competitive plane. Call this the hustler. At this point, one is aware of the next level, but is stuck in resistance, frustration, and grinding, really trying to sludge through the mud. Success, it says, is marked by effort and competition rather than alignment, battles to break through ceilings, but often lacks clarity, alignment, and flow. I know, at least in Australia, because I've heard my friend Lewis use this term, is there's this concept of the battler, the fighter, the battler. And so I'm like, yeah, that's the competitive plane. So for those of you who have listened to guys like, whether it's Andrew Tate, Andy Elliott, Andy Frisella, why they're all named Andy, I think is a coincidence. Anybody we got to fight, we got to compete, we got to hustle. David Goggins is a perfect example. Tim Grover. There's this idea of this competitive, we got to compete. It's tough. We got to work hard, right? And that's at that level. And to be clear, I would say I put some arbitrary income type shit here, but most of the human population lives very low on this scale. And they really, I think these line up pretty perfectly because most people are in fear, doubt, feeling judged, guilt, shame, sadness, depressed, or dead. Very low energy. And going back to this guy, where was my scale? This is why there's the huge chasm between, I'll just say, the haves and the have-nots, and it always has existed, is because those who have understood how to create games that others play within those systems have been able to really transcend to a different dimension that they now, not to use the term puppet masters, but they're really, you've heard the term puppet masters. They're the creators of much of the structure of what we believe to be reality today. And they're doing that from an up here type of a place. And this little downtrodden fucked universe down here, they're just controlling it. Now, I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that seems to be what's occurring. Okay. And put another way, going back to this, they're effectively outside of this while simultaneously making things move within this framework. All right. This is how this all lines up. And the competitive plane is when, all right, we've figured some stuff out. I put 10K to 100K a month because you can grind, hustle, and compete your way. At this point, most of the how to do anythings tactically are ChatGPT. At this point, my shit's good, but honestly, how to learn stuff, tactics, it's all there. What makes the difference, though, is the awareness and the ability to control and create of the being that is applying those tactics. So we all have access to the same information. Why does one person absolutely dominate with the same information, in the same market, with the same niche, with the same opportunity, with the same access, and someone else doesn't, right? So I would say down here, this is the plane of knowledge. You've heard knowledge is power. I would argue that knowledge is potential power if wielded by a skilled individual who has what I would refer to as wisdom. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to use it in a fruit salad. I like that quote because it's funny and it very appropriately, I think, explains this phenomena of why do some people crush it with some information and others don't. It requires a different level of awareness, okay? And how do you get to that different level of awareness is the question. And there is this concept that I've branded around, but also this is the big idea behind what is a bulletproof entrepreneur, is those who have transcended to the quantum realm of becoming ultimately untouchable, ultimately outside of this competitive realm, this realm of lost souls, this realm of people that are operating in the physical universe. And here's this definition: it says, fully aligned with purpose and values, operates in abundance and clarity and with effortless productivity and emotional mastery, creates and bends reality, thriving in a realm of infinite potential. Net worth grows on autopilot, fostering personal freedom. Cool. Income level goes up. But ultimately, it's once we transcend that plane of competition, once we transcend that plane of chaos, which is where 99.9% of people live, is because A, they don't know this, first of all, in my opinion, but B, even if they do know it, they don't have an understanding of what do I do about it. So there's a conceptual understanding of this, and then there's a what do I do about it. And what the main idea behind everything that I do is unlocking this gateway to that quantum realm. And it sounds really esoteric, but check this out. Nathan already hit it right on the head. This is why it's important to know where you're at, where you're going mathematically, is because the physical universe is math. That's why math, there's sacred geometry, there's sacred numbers, there's the physical universe is a mathematical universe. Funny enough, those who are resistant to, I am not a numbers person, I don't like numbers, I don't like math, that is a small game designed to keep the game of uncertainty going, per our point earlier of lack of getting clarity. It keeps that lower level game going, all right? And the only way to transcend, in my opinion, from what I've seen and what I've applied to myself and those who I have shared all of what I'm about to share with you with have actually applied, have really created some unbelievable results for themselves. And how that has been done is very simply there is some knowledge regarding, I'll just say, how the financial universe works on the 3D plane, which is why I have financial education, right? You can be as transcendental as you fucking want, but if you don't know the rules of how to navigate the financial universe, which nobody has ever taught you, it is impossible to play by those rules, control those rules, and use those rules to your advantage, which is why that is one piece of knowledge that is vital if you're going to navigate this 3D universe that is a financial universe, okay? Which is why I got the finances education section. Beyond that, I would say the only other piece of knowledge is what we are going through right now, is understanding this is how, at the very least, this is a workable model. This might not be the model, but it's workable, it's practical, practical and it's applicable. It's not, my attempt is to bring woo down into what do I do pragmatically to transcend, not just sit there and think hard about it or meditate on it. And so that's why it's important to be very hyper clear on your numbers in your business and with your finances. Because if you're trying to, from a point of where you are, if you're trying to get to this green dot and you don't know where the green dot is and you don't know where you are, it's impossible to navigate there, because the only way to navigate within the 3D universe is with mathematical precision. Now, it could be reactive mathematical precision that you're currently operating on, but it's still measurable. So this is why if you start tracking today and you're like, what if I want to back up my data for the last 5 years? It exists. That data exists, even if nobody logged it. It's there. I don't care if you made 20 phone calls yesterday but didn't write it down. Those 20 phone calls still happened, right? So whether you like it or not, it's there. Choosing to look at it or not is a choice. And I think one of the major keys to transcending to that fifth dimension is having a very firm grasp of where are you in the third or fourth dimension and where exactly, and that's the only way to gain control from a fifth dimension standpoint. It's the only way. You got to know where you are exactly, where you want to go exactly, and how far you are, per Nathan's beautiful point earlier. So that's point one. Point two, we'll call these kind of, what are the pillars of the gateways of this whole thing? I would say if there were keys to unlock this, it's first one, we'll just say KPIs and knowing your numbers. Number two is the vision of exactly the life experience that you want to create, which is why we have that vision section, that mission section, where you basically go through and get in touch with what is it that really at your core you feel pulled towards. And all you're really doing is giving yourself an opportunity to open up your mind, but it's giving yourself an opportunity to tap into, I'll just say, that higher consciousness, but it's the real you. It's like the real you. All you're doing when you go through that vision section is you're having that conversation with yourself of what is that really that feels good, and capturing that, because that also is a place on this plane. This plane doesn't go away, by the way, no matter how high you transcend, because remember, they're simultaneous. They interlock with each other. It's just what happens is your ability to control it way magnified when you're hyper clear on exactly where you're trying to go. And when I say that, I don't mean just like a dollar amount. How do I want to spend my time? Why am I doing what I'm doing? It's part of the reason I'm doing this lesson today, is I've deviated quite a bit for a lot of different reasons. Some, I guess, good, some bad, whatever. But I've deviated from this kind of my original purpose of like even starting this business to begin with 5 years ago was these principles. And I've gotten pulled into how-to land, and I fucking hate it there, to be quite honest, because it's such a low level of vibration. And so that's why I'm doing this today. And ultimately, when we're clear on that and when we're in alignment with it, we're able to navigate further and closer to it. And just like this green dot and the red dot. And so there's a simultaneous, how do I want to spend my time? And then how much money do I want to make while I'm spending my time doing that thing? And there are, to be very clear, certain games and phases where like you got to do some shit that you maybe don't want to do, or maybe that's a limiting belief on my side, and you can do it, maybe don't accept that, and you can do everything that only makes you happy and see if it makes you money. And if you do, report back as to, how it went, share with me your secrets. But ultimately, getting very clear on where you want to go, not just financially or with numbers, but with how you want to spend your time on that journey is what that whole section is about. Because if you're not clear on that, you might get to where you want to go, but not enjoy it. I've made money in a lot of different ways. There's certain things that like made me, actually some of the things that made me the most money, I don't want to do. Like I'd rather make less money and not do that. Now, the goal isn't make less money. I'm just saying if I had a choice, which I do, I'm not going to choose to do that just for the money. So second point of, I would say the next key to unlock this gateway, this portal, is knowing exactly where you want to go. And so that whole section of that portal, our portal and circle, is designed to get you clear on that and then aligned with it so that you're pulled towards that area instead of being in the competitive plane of grinding and pushing yourself towards that area. There's two separate ways to get to that green dot, all right? And so now that we know this, we could just do the grindy competitive plane one, or we could choose to deliberately place ourselves in alignment with it. That's what that whole section is for. Then it's releasing these anchors. We'll just call them charge clearing. So then it's understanding that we have all of these things that are anchoring us down in this physical universe. And all they're going to do is keep us on this competitive plane or in the realm of chaos. That's all they're going to do. That's their whole fucking job, is to keep you sucked into the game. All right. And so the great news is in the Bulletproof Mind section, we have tools that basically start to make those anchors go away. Long story short. And so the more of that you do, the more of those that you clear, the lighter you will be. Therefore, you will naturally, you're not going to move up. You're just going to stop being sucked down because you're already up. The truth of the matter is, again, you're already this one up here. You're already there. You're just reactively using this infinite power and ability to create some stupid shit for yourself. That's really all that's happening. And so you're using the reactive I hate numbers to avoid tracking. You're using the I'm overwhelmed game to avoid getting clear on stuff. That's all that's happening. It's a reactive way of you've decided that at some point on your timeline, you've decided that somebody else should make these decisions for me and I'm not going to do it. But I still have this fantasy of getting to that green dot. It won't happen that way. It can't. Unless somebody else is tracking your shit for you, is clear on where you want to go for you, and it magically perfectly aligns with exactly what you want. I don't know about you. I have yet to find anyone in my life had that type of clarity on my own best interest. That's what's really happening. You're already it. You've just reactively made decisions to convince yourself otherwise, and you've gotten sucked back down into the second, third, and fourth dimensions. And then you've reactively continued to decide yourself to stay down there. All right. Those are 3 keys. I would say, let's see, is there more that I want to share? I would say the key of understanding there's certain principles, which is we have in the foundations section. There's certain principles that make it easier to navigate. And so I'll just put F for the foundations, I would say, are the 4th key to this. Yes, it's a certain piece of knowledge and frameworks that if they are followed, make it a lot easier to navigate this. If they're not followed, you're going to stay in the 4th dimension of hustling around because you're playing by a different set of rules. So there are those that live in the universe where you got to go fight, which is why you see a lot of some guru guys that are like really angry alpha motherfuckers. Like, cool. That's not my jam. Although sometimes I can be stern and very direct. You do whatever you want. It's up to you. I don't care what you do. I really don't. It's totally up to you. I can only put forth suggestions of how I view transcending to a dimension where it's not this fight, grind, hard, push, hustle thing, because it does exist, and I can only share with you my perception on it, and it's up to you to decide whether it's worth exploring or not. I will tell you, though, that I don't know any other way. That's all I can say about that. Yeah. Does the idea of that which you resist persists fit into any of these realms? Absolutely. Everything down inside of this mind section is based on these polarities. So if you're resisting this negative, by definition, that means you're also wanting this positive. Because if you already had it, if the situation that you were resisting already didn't exist, you wouldn't be resisting it. Therefore, you must want another situation that doesn't exist. And if you put out, I want it, by definition, you don't have it. And if you keep affirming that you don't have it, you won't have it. And so that's why, as Buddha says, the root of all suffering is attachment. That's why when you clear an infatuation charge, many people are like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my drive and motivation. No, it's just going to come from a different place. But also, you may be driving hard after someone else's goal that isn't yours, in which case it's a great idea to clear it and realize that you're not actually motivated to achieve that and get back in alignment with what you're actually motivated to achieve. Otherwise, you're just going to be really successful at somebody else's game and you're going to want to fucking shoot yourself. Yeah, Roderick says, right map, wrong mountain. Solid. And many people have a fear of clearing infatuations, in which case I would clear a fear charge on clearing infatuations. Remember, I've said, and if you go through that Mindset Sins book, these are all intertwined. This is all this fucking mess of shit that we've decided. Another way of looking at it are all these little games that are within each other, right? And so we got to take them one at a fucking time. And I will tell you, as you continue to clear these false perceptions, by definition, if you're like, oh, I'm afraid to clear an infatuation charge because I'll lose motivation, that whole sentence is a reactive sentence. There's a fear charge about an infatuation charge, probably about a doubt charge that you can actually accomplish the real thing that you really want to do. So you can either keep living in that, and then so from that point, and that's just like a quick 3 example situation, right? There's hundreds of these, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of these that are all interconnected. And so when you're stuck in that, I don't know, overwhelmed, 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 it allows people that are existing in higher dimensions of control to just push a couple buttons and know exactly what to get you to do, and you remain under their control. And so you can either continue to keep playing that game, or you can start to control your own universe. And the way you do it are, in my opinion, in my experience, are these are the keys to that gateway. So we got the actual numbers of where are we in the grid of this physical universe. We got where do I want to be specifically, and how do I want to spend my time in this physical universe. We got what are the anchors that are holding us down in this physical universe that are keeping us from having and exhibiting this control in a causative way rather than a reactive way. Because keep in mind, remember, you are in control. You're just using that control to decide that you're not. Let that sink in. And then we need to understand these frameworks, right? And once we have these in place, now we start to unlock that next dimension, right? So we got, what am I missing here of the 6? Power, wealth, mind, vision, execution, and influence. Thank you. All right. There's 2 more, in my opinion. Execution. This kind of goes, we'll put it here. So this is getting shit done. You can clear all the charges in the world, know exactly where you're going, know exactly where you are, and you can understand the fundamentals. But then if you decide that you don't have enough time, you aren't very efficient with your time, you can't focus, you get distracted from shit, and then you just decide to use that to certainly not track or clear anything, and then you just sit there and do nothing because of overwhelm. This is why I have the master classes on time and shit. This F is fundamentals. You could argue that what we're going through here is part of the fundamentals, is understanding the whole framework and certain rules there's certain rules of how to operate that make this easier. We'll just call those the fundamentals. And that would be things like the spirit of play, the understanding of the philosophy of the pulling the rope that I outlined, the everything in that Freedom Foundations section is just like principles, staples, fundamentals, at least that I've found to be helpful. Okay. Execution. This goes beyond time management, but you could loop it into that bucket. But understand that time is part of this physical universe. Understand that back down here is matter, energy, space, and time. Okay. Again, time from that time masterclass, as you recall, is only the distance between 2 points in space. And so this, not to go to Einstein theory of relativity and space-time, but this is how you bend time, and this is how you also take quantum leaps in progress in any area, is you have to understand the fabric of time, and then you have to understand how time works, where it exists. Because keep in mind, so for those of you, how many of you guys have ever been in a flow state and time like went really fast? You're like, holy fuck, where did 4 hours go? Yeah, time is only a perception in 2, 3, 1 through 4 dimension reality. Outside of that, it can be controlled, it can be bent, and this is why, although it seems a bit cliche, the movie The Matrix, as Morpheus said, the rules can be bent and some can be broken. And this is how you make quantum leaps. And if you begin to take control of your time, and all of these, by the way, these are not mutually exclusive. In my experience, you need all of these. I wish there was one key, but there's fucking 6 that I narrowed it down to. But you got to take, so that's why I explain this in our time lessons, and that's why if you're going to plan and you're going to project in a business, it's relatively straightforward. If you want to get to 10 million and you're at 1 million, that means it's 10 more than you are right now. And if you are anywhere near decent with understanding basic math, you can pretty much project how long it's going to take you to get from 1 to 10 if you keep doing what you're doing. But if, again, you don't know your numbers, you've decided that you're going to be disorganized, you've decided that's just going to be how you live, you're going to keep yourself on the competitive hustling plane. And that's where a lot of 6, 7, even some 8-figure entrepreneurs that I know in this space are still stuck on the competitive plane, simply because they've decided to keep themselves from using, I'll say, or on using one of these 6 keys or multiple of them. And let's say you have a guy who totally masters the wealth and finance section, can totally execute, and so he gets to point B, but he fucking hates his life. Happens all the time. So he missed the mind section and missed the vision section. 6th key, and I believe, I don't know, I'm not going to etch this in stone just yet, but I am going to etch all 6 that have been covered so far in stone, and the 6th key is the influence key. Because we are all from the same energy, we are all the same energy, and because as we go up this ladder, so remember this fucking MLM looking pyramid scheme bullshit thing that I drew here? Okay. Understand that this aligns with that dimension grid, right? I'd move it over there if I could, but here we are. And so down here, it goes many levels deep. And so as you go up this scale of these dimensions, we'll just call this as the 5th, 10th, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Here's that line. As you go up, you notice there's a more and more of a unification, right? There's less stuff as you go up. So that must mean that the more that we unify in alignment with other humans, with other people, with other consciousnesses, the faster that we will transcend to the next dimension. So that's the importance of everything is sales and influence. Another way of explaining selling is just getting somebody's perspective from here to here. That's all selling is. They have a way of looking at things. They're at an existing 3D point in space and time, and there needs to be a process that if we're going to get them in alignment with us and move higher up the scale of awareness and higher up into more dimensions of control and power and ability, we need to get others in alignment with us. And that means we need to get our families, our friends, our clients. This is marketing and sales. We need to get our followings or lack thereof as they grow. Like, we need to influence others so that we can get back to that, oh, I connect with you. Now we're connected. Cool. I resonate with that. Now we resonate. And now all of a sudden a duality where we were both now on maybe two separate sides. Now that duality goes away and we're on the same page. This would be a practical way of saying this is how we get on the same page. So there was a time with me where you were like, we're not on the same page. And then there was some shit that happened and you're like, yo, we're on the same page now. Vibing with you, dude. And so that is sales and marketing. And so we have now more of a oneness of awareness together and an agreement together than we did before. Therefore, a duality went away. Therefore, we basically cleared a charge. We balanced out a duality. Therefore, we both transcended a little bit higher. And so the better our sales, marketing, influence, people, you name it, skills are, the faster that we will transcend to that next dimension. And so this is a simpler way of saying business is both numbers and psychology. You got to master both. Yes. So the numbers part, cool, we handled here. Let's see, where's my highlighter? We handled the numbers part here, right? And now the rest of this, the vision is a little bit numbers, but the rest of this is the psychology part. Got to clear charges and get our own psychology to where we're seeing things for what they really are. We got to influence others. We got to understand our own psychology of what are the frameworks so that we can have proper expectations of how the fuck is this joint put together, right? And we need to understand the fundamental principles of what we can go back to and remind ourselves of if and when we get pulled off into another direction. And so this is another way of saying, what is the breakdown of how do you master both the numbers and the psychology and get what you want? These are the 6 keys to, in my opinion and in my experience, transcending that competitive plane and now going up into the quantum realm. And so to cover quickly, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like how the fuck high does it go? Check this out. And again, the income numbers on the right side here are like arbitrary, just to paint a picture. I didn't pull this on data or whatever. It just, let's start at the top. Like the creator, awareness of all possibilities across dimensions and timelines, pure omnipresence, apparently that's twice, influences and creates legacies that ripple across time with an eternal impact, lives beyond individuality and transforms existence itself. This would be like Elon Musk. Trump's doing it. Like those fucking guys. Wow. It's crazy impressive. They have all of it. They got all those 6 keys and they're like the epitome of demonstrating that, in my opinion. From what I've seen, I would put those 2 guys in that bucket. Elon Musk, I would say, would be at the top of that, of people that we are aware of in the public eye at the moment. Then we go down to a realm of stillness and infinite potential where existence and non-existence emerge. I'm here. I learned some shit. Now I'm going to share it with you, help you up, because I know that the more that happens, the more the dualities go away and the more ultimately it increases your power. Not to say that I'm certainly not making $10 million a month, but these understandings of these principles and what does it look like at that higher level of awareness and how do we get there? How we get there is those 6 keys. You master all 6 of those, how do I get leads becomes a fucking joke of a game. It's a small game. And again, that's why the answers are in small, easily, readily available locations. Go to ChatGPT, go to fucking... The reason that's not working for you is because of the person who you are right now. The beingness that you are right now is not executing very well due to charges, lack of vision, lack of tracking, lack of influence, and lack of understanding the fundamentals of how this whole whole fucking thing works, which is why I'm doing this. Has nothing to do with with knowledge at all. We go down one, the source of universal creation and transformation shapes paradigms, industries, and societies, operates with boundless creative power, making breakthroughs for humanity and redefining systems of thought and existence. Great example. Jake Paul and Mike Tyson just fought. Anybody watch that? Whether you liked it, didn't, I don't give a fuck. That's not the point. The point is, Jake Paul created an entirely new industry of influencer boxing. That wasn't a thing. The beauty of it is, and I would say he's probably making 5 to 10 million a month, if I had to bet. The guy's clean. He's making gobs and gobs of money. But he's shifting paradigms, shaping industries, and shaping societies. And he's doing it from a place of ultimate causality. And what he knows, and how he got, I'll say, famous, is he was very good at creating dualities. He was very good at, practically speaking, he was very good at being polarizing. He mastered the influence side. And then he took it from there, basically. But he created an entirely new industry, a whole new thing. There was no such thing as influencer boxing. And the beauty of it is he continues to have that type of control because he's got now the boxing like guys that are all like, he's ruining boxing, which creates a duality of those who are like, no, he's great for the sport, it's entertainment, and the guy's a fucking genius. And he created that argument, which all it does is he now has mastered this. He's mastered how to create these dualities and polarities from a place of causation, not reactivity. You guys see that? Pretty fucking cool. Move down one, complete awareness of oneness and interconnectivity, operates timeless principles, unity, collaboration, builds global impact movements, harmonizing personal growth with societal evolution. This could be anywhere between, so I would say like a Tony Robbins is somewhere in between here as well, if not a little bit further up, where totally new industry, totally revolutionized shit, shifted cultures, right? Move down one, masters the systems and blueprints that guide creation and progress, designed frameworks that redefine industries, enabling exponential growth and influencing countless lives through scalable, sustainable systems. This would be like a Sam Ovens or an Alex Hormozi, right? Sam Ovens or Ty Lopez, perfect example. Totally transformed a new industry. And in fact, he's probably up like a Ty Lopez is probably somewhere in this range here. But that's all they've done. If you look at what they've mastered, none of those guys don't know their numbers. None of those guys don't know where they're going. All of those guys have credible influence skills and understanding of high-level influence. Not just like, what do I say to handle this objection? That's not what I'm talking about. Like this, if you understand this shit, it makes it doesn't matter what your objection handler script is. It's a different paradigm of influence, okay? It's the thought process and paradigm that's used to create the objection handler. The objection handler is like a competitive plain symptom of understanding everything that we're covering on this training. So they also are looking at things in a way that doesn't impede them. They allot their time and they're able to execute at an incredibly high level, and they have their own, whether it's same ones that I outline or not, but they all very much demonstrate a solid understanding of the principles and fundamentals that I've outlined that I've found useful. And they all have these 6 keys, and that's why they've been able to make this quantum leap from this world of lost hustling to this quantum realm. And if you look at some of these titles here, we have the bulletproof entrepreneur, sure, great. We have the architect, the visionary, the universal architect, infinite potential, the ultimate creator. We have infinite patterns, united field, cosmic creation, the void, infinite realities. I don't know how accurate any of those are, but I think this paints the picture of where are we going. And I'll end with this, is the trippiest part of this whole thing is that you're already here. You're using your awareness of all possibilities across dimensions and timelines and your omnipresence and your influence to influence yourself to go and play little fucking tiny games down here. That's what you're doing. So you're not actually moving. It's just now new decisions. And so what happens is those new decisions create new, essentially, pathways to travel within this 3D universe. And when you know where you are, where you're going, you don't have any, I'll say, charges. You don't have any anchors holding you down, or you have less and less anchors over time. You're able to influence others and get the collective consciousness also moving up and helping you in that direction. You can execute. You understand the rules of the game. You know exactly where you are, exactly where you're going, and you're very crystal clear on exactly how you want it to happen. That is how you unlock transcending from the 3D, 4D world that 99.9% of people are trapped in reactively, and you transcend and you unlock to the quantum realm of causation. And it's mathematical. It can be calculated. It's not some shit. It doesn't require an ayahuasca journey, right? It's all here. And that is essentially how you don't ever escape the Matrix, because if you did, there'd be nothing there and you'd want to jump back in for something to do. It's like in the Matrix when Neo first shows up, it's like this big white void, right? And so out of that big white void, there are programs that get created and installed. And those programs that get created and installed have to have dimensions to them so that they can be experienced and a sensation can actually happen. And that's all we're ever doing. It doesn't go away. We don't leave the Matrix. We just learn how to control it. And when we can control it, that's when the whole game changes, because no longer are we reliant on, oh no, somebody else is competing or stole my customer or whatever. You created a universe of abundance for yourself where there is no such thing as scarcity, because there isn't. You only have created scarcity out of your infinite creative ability to have a game to play. Was all abundant, the game would be over and we'd be left with only this. So we got to create scarcity. So we do. And then we bitch about it. And that's the game. All right. So that said, last question here from Sean. If you're laser focused to what you want your goal into, what you don't want usually dies because you aren't putting energy into it. All right. If you are laser focused to what you want in your goal, putting only energy into that, what you don't want usually dies because you aren't putting energy into it. Okay. Do you have to go into each tangle in the rabbit holes to get rid of it? I don't know what that means, unfortunately. If you're asking, if you're clear on where you're going, it's real simple. This is why tracking and having a GPS is important. Are you making progress in a timely manner towards your ideal scene? If so, I wouldn't worry about much. If not, got to make an adjustment. My intention here is not to create more work than is necessary. And here's how you know. Are you measurably making progress? If you look at, it's like, I'm going to drive from Florida to California. Do I have to go down a rabbit hole to figure out? I don't know. Look, are you on your way? Are you making progress? If so, keep fucking doing that. That's pretty much it. I'm fearing the charges in the game. I still don't understand what that means. Sorry. Maybe ask it a different way. If you're fearing charges, then clear a charge on charges. But ultimately, they're going to be there because the physical universe is going to be there. So there's no getting rid of the physical universe. What's going to happen is you're going to not be controlled by it and you're going to be controlling it, but you're not leaving it. It's what I say, going from effect to cause. But the 6 things that you need to go to cause are this. You can clear all the charges in the world and feel great, but if you're saying to yourself, I want to get to California from Florida, and you find yourself in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and you feel great about it, that's cool. If that's your end goal, but don't bitch about the fact that you're not in California. So that's why you need multiple. I don't know any other way. I think I've narrowed it down to these 6. That if we're looking at it this way, and then I think we're done. If we're looking at it this way, it's almost, can I make this larger? There we go. So check this out. It's almost like here is this barrier. And each one of keys almost unlock. Is this going to work? Okay. Guess my eraser is not going to work. Each one of these kind of unlocks pieces of this, and when they all unlock, it's like this whole thing goes away. That's how I'm thinking about it. Imagine almost I could see this being picture a movie where they're trying to get to this sacred location and there's 6 things that they need to go collect, and when they do, it's like the movie The Fifth Element, if you've ever seen it, where they got to go collect 3 or 4 or 5 stones or whatever, and once they're all collected, they put them in this room and they all talk to each other and this portal opens up and cool shit happens. Instead of 3 or 4 or whatever was in that movie, or 5, I'm seeing at least that there's 6 for our practical purposes here, all of which you have access to. So that's why when I say, do the fucking daily 5, that's why these are the daily 5. And why if you miss one, you're fucked. Or maybe you're not fucked, but you're now more subject to external forces influencing you experience in reality and where you end up than you are in control of it.